And you know what's interesting for me is that I work right now for a criminal justice focused organization. And so it's very present for me, like Biden's participation in the crime bill and what that all meant and how many people have suffered at the hands of that kind of policy. And I'm also well aware of the record that Kamala Harris had as DA in particular, that people, are kind of, grappling with. And so I'm definitely keeping all of that in mind. And like when I see someone like Ice Cube, for example, talking about the contract with Black America, or I see Movement for Black Lives talking about the Breathe Act, people are coming up with ideas to say, listen, you have some stuff to make right. So if you were to actually be elected, you have some stuff to make right. But the thing I think that lands some more for me is like when Angela Davis came out and said, you know what, she was asked her opinion about the ticket, and she was like, yeah, I mean, and I'm paraphrasing the great Angela Davis, but what I took from it was, give me Biden Harris all day, every day, because at least I can have a coherent conversation, we can have dialogue, and we can push an agenda. And so how hopeful are you all about the idea that we could push an agenda, that we could have conversations that would lead to some change for issues that matter to Black, Indigenous, Brown, immigrant, LGBTQ plus communities, so our most diverse and vulnerable communities? How confident are you in that strategy?
I mean, we have to start with facts and reason. And that's what I feel like Trump and his folks lack. Like, we can't even agree on facts. So there's no way we can move anything forward if we can't even agree on objective truth. Like, if you're telling me, I was going to say that the sky is red, but it actually was in California fairly recently. If you're telling me, that, the earth, the sun revolves around the earth, or the earth, I can't, and we can't, there's no negotiation. And so for that reason, like, it's an impossibility to get anything done under a Trump administration, in addition to their very clear, obvious, self-serving power grab for a tiny elite group of people. So that's a non-starter. Like, if we can't even agree on facts, there's no way we can negotiate. These are hunches based on what we do know about Biden and Harris, is that I do think, again, that we can't agree on basic facts. And I do think they value expertise as well, which I think Trump doesn't, right? So even if we have different, I believe that this should happen in the criminal justice system, and maybe Harris and Biden agree, believe this, at least we can kind of say, well, let's get some experts, let's read the data, let's figure out based on facts, like what the best thing to do is. And it's not to say that we're all arrived to the same situation, but at least we can, like, again, have a real truth-based conversation about moving forward. Will the country turn around under a Biden-Harris administration? It has gone so far downhill in a certain way. Yes, I think we'll get some basic information about pandemics and like how to, what are the steps to like repair it. We'll get some basic stuff. Will that achieve everything I wanted? No, but at least it'll bring us back from this big hole that we've been in. So I have hope at least we can repair some of the losses that we've experienced under Trump, at minimum.
And can I just jump in to say, I think Kamala Harris she looks like fire. Like, she looks like she gonna get some stuff done, and she could get some stuff turned around. So I feel like sometimes I look at Biden, I'm like, oh, I mean, he definitely has the political know-how, but she just seems to have a spirited like way about her. That's like, yeah, we gonna turn this thing. So that's a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. And then at least I do feel like Biden will respond to her, right? So, he was smart to bring her on. I think she represents a lot of groups that Biden may not be, he may want to be in touch with, but he may be missing something. So, I like that he brought her on. And I think between the two of them, not only can we repair some of the things, but I do think we can get some things forward that are on, our personal progressive agenda.
Christine and Charles, what say you?
Well, yeah, I can add. I think I do think we can get some things accomplished. I don't think it's going to be easy. Like I know that not that any of us or anybody thinks it will be, but I know one of the things Obama would always say is sort of voting is like one step of the process, and then after voting you need to like be active, during the administration and pushing your Congress folks and sort of advocating where possible. And I think that's tough because people have jobs and people have things that are taking up their day-to-day attention. So that piece, that piece I think is always a little bit tougher than even voting. I do think, when even something, thinking about policy, like I think even something like there's been a lot of calls to defund the police and sort of like reimagine what I really like the phrase reimagining public safety, and I think that I don't think that's necessarily something that even Biden is sort of. I think there've been I've even seen recently in social media and people trying to like correct the record and be like, Biden doesn't support defunding the police. Like this, let's just make sure that's clear. That's a policy issue that's important to me, and I think I don't know if that's his world vision. I think his world or his vision of sort of public safety does involve probably more police than I would have. So I think we're going to have to push a fair amount. But to Julie's point, I do think the thing I really appreciate, the thing we've missed so much these last few years is that having people who actually will listen, value expertise, are thoughtful, all those things you just assume you would have in a president. And I think we learned like you can't always make that assumption.
Yeah, I love how you said that. All these things you would assume we'd have in a president. And this group, I'm sure we've all laughed about this, but like, all those years that we moved through the Bush era and like, so many of these presidents that we were like, but we'd be like, can you come, can we invite you back to just even sit and be thoughtful for us? I mean, even if it's thoughtful on the conservative side, it has some kind of, like it's some kind of humanity to it, that I just am like not seeing. So I appreciate that. Oh, Christine, what say you?
Yeah, well, I just want to add that I listen to tons and tons of podcasts, all the people breaking down the news and the candidates, and probably listen to more of that than I do my own research, which I should probably do more of my own research too. But I have heard, Kamala sort of talked about her record in California, and she would do it differently if she could do it again. I just heard an interview with a young woman who heads up the Sunrise Movement today, talking about how Biden has moved so much on environmental issues in just the last 6 months. So I do see in them sort of rational people who are willing, to listen, who are willing to grow and who are willing to reflect on what they've done. Like, I think at their core, I think that they really want people to be taken care of and to be safe and healthy and, happy, employed, independent, autonomous. And so I think that we may not always agree with their vision for how that's going to happen, but I think that they will at least listen and try to understand and try to make the best choices in their opinion versus what we have now, which is just this really narrow, I'm not sure what we have now actually, but it's horrible.
Agreed. And it's interesting to me because I'll hear people talk about politics in this way, like where it's like searching for the perfect leader, like and if you think about this country or any group, like the idea of a perfect leader just is non-existent, as we've said before. And the agreement of consensus building, like in an organization, much less a country, is like, to me, virtually impossible. Like, we're not going to get any, I don't think we're going to get that kind of, everyone agrees, everyone gets, is on board with Biden or Harris, you know, so, okay, so we're not going to probably get any absolutes, but what I think we're saying we get is negotiation, is a little bit of leverage, is like tactically an ear, and like experts who advise, who a leader who might actually read briefing documents and like actually like want to do some research about the impact to real people. You know, so I think what we're getting is just a little bit more wiggle room to have a space at the table, or have our different voices, because we're not a monolith as a body, right? Even as, if we're Democratic voters, if we're independent voters, even if we're Republican voters who are like, I can't with good conscience vote for this man, and we're gonna vote, you know, we have different concerns. There's so many issues that matter to all of us across this spectrum, that it just feels important to have someone who will be available to have a conversation with those different groups. So I really appreciated that.